Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire. Today I wanted to share with you one of my favorite ways to get really quick coloring, but with a little bit of shading added to it. I'm going to actually use Copic markers with my distress inks to get this look, but you could use any markers along with your distress inks for this. This is the method that I use to color both the cat and the dog here, and I'm going to be using some new products from my favorite things I think are just absolutely adorable. So you can see the shading that I have on these animals. That's all done with Copic markers and distress inks very quickly. And I will also show you how to create these two unique card designs. Now look how cute this is with the little dog hanging on the inside. So much fun. Okay, so these are the new stamp sets from My Favorite Things that I'll be using. They're two large sets. I think they're 4x8. There's one that features cats and one that features dogs, so everybody in the cat and dog world will be happy. And there are some stamps in here that are super unique. They actually show the front and the back of an image, so you can have it peeking through on the inside of the card, which I think is so much fun. So here on the cat one, there's a cat that's laying down. You can put on the front of the card, and then the cat that from the behind that you can put on the inside of the card. You could do this maybe in a window on a card or on the top edge of a card, which I'll be doing today with the dog. Another nice thing about these stamp sets is that since they're large, there are a lot of different images and a lot of different sentiments, so you can get a lot of card uses out of them. Now here's the dog set. I'm a dog person, so I'm in love with this. What I really like is this dog that's peeking from the front, and then the dog you can have from the back too. A lot of different things you can do with that, which I'll be doing today. Then there is a really playful one. If you see here, there's a fire hydrant and the dog next to it, and it says, some days you're the dog and some days you're the hydrant, which I think is kind of funny. So a lot of different images in here, and I'm going to focus on a cat card and a dog card. So I'm going to first stamp all the images that I plan to color with My Favorite Things Black Hybrid ink, which is the best ink for Copic markers, on Nina white cardstock. And you want to let that dry for a few minutes or heat set it before you bring your Copic markers to it. Now let's start with the dog. I am going to show you how to do super fast Copic marker coloring and add distress ink shading, but you could do this with any markers you have. Now the first step is to put down a very generous coating of the brown ink, the lightest brown ink that you plan to use. So you can see I'm actually using the chisel end of the marker just to put this down very quickly. It just makes it faster, and I actually need to re-ink this guy. But I'm going to go over it a few times so I can make sure that it's really saturated with this color. And that is the only coloring I'm going to do on this dog except for the spots. I need to make his spots a little bit darker. So I'm first starting with a medium shade of brown, and then I'm going to come in with a darker marker, but I'm going to scribble it onto my craft sheet. Then I'm going to take the medium and pick up some of that darker just on the tip of the marker and pull it into my dog. Now the reason I'm doing this is it was too big of a jump between my medium and my dark shade. So by picking up just a little bit of the dark with the medium, I get a color in between, and I can add a little bit of shading to the spots. Now I could skip the shading on the spots, but I really wanted them to stand out. So the only shading I'm doing with my Copic markers is on these spotted areas. So this is going to save me quite a bit of time. Now you could use any markers that you want here. I use Copic markers for a few reasons. One is that you can color as much as you want on an image and it won't pill up the paper, and you also don't see the marker lines. So that's a great advantage to Copic markers in addition to the ability to blend them. But you could use regular markers here and just color the dog with light brown marker and the spots with a dark brown marker, and then we'll do the shading as I'm going to show you in a moment with the distress ink. But don't feel intimidated by Copic markers. You don't have to do complicated blending if you don't want to. You can keep it simple and get really great solid colored images without marker lines by using them. And you really don't need to have many colors. If you are interested in learning more about the basic of Copic markers, I will put a link here in my YouTube description below to a blog post that I did a long time ago that just gives the basics. Okay, so now I have my dog all finished and ready for the shading. To clean up my craft sheet, I'm just using an alcohol swab. And by the way, if you don't have a craft sheet, you could just scribble your marker, your Copic marker, onto a piece of plastic or some packaging. Now I forgot I need to color the collar a little bit of red, and you can just go right over the brown ink. It kind of moves the brown aside and changes the color to red. Okay, so now it's time to add the shading. I usually use distress ink in either Gathered Twigs or Vintage Photo. Today I'm using Vintage Photo based on the kind of red tone to this dog. And I'm just using an ink blending tool and very lightly adding some of the color just on the edge of my stamped image. And look at this, I'm very quickly getting some simple shading around the outside. It kind of brings it to life and gives it the look of dimension without taking the time to blend that part. So think about it. Anytime you color maybe a flower with lots of different colors of ink, or maybe even just one color, you can come in with your distress ink and add shading around the edge in whatever color kind of coordinates with the markers you used. You want to make sure you're using an ink blending tool or a makeup applicator and kind of going along the edges and holding the stamped image in your hand. Okay, so now that I'm done with my little dog, I have the front and the back all colored. I am going to color his eyes a little bit darker with a black marker, and then also color in his nose with black. We'll do more to this later on when the card is finished. Okay, so we have our dog all colored here. Let's go ahead and do this fun card design where it looks like the dog's kind of hanging on the front of the card and you can see the rest of him on the inside. For this card, I'll need one more Copic image. So I'm going to stamp a heart from this great stamp set from My Favorite Things. This is an older one, but it had an open heart. And I'm just coloring it very quickly with red Copics. And I'm going to cut this out, and the dog is actually going to hold this heart in his paw. I thought it kind of went along with the sentiment. Okay, so now I have a note card here that is cut to 5.5 inches wide and 3.25 inches tall. And it is a side folding card. Now this is My Favorite Things craft cardstock, which is a great craft cardstock. And I'm stamping this new paw print background with Versamark ink. Now I'm going to make sure that I press very firmly so that all that Versamark transfers from the stamp onto my paper. I'm then going to add some clear embossing powder so we get kind of a tone-on-tone shiny look on this background. And by the way, I need to apologize for my nail polish because I am really realizing how loud it is, but that's what you get when you ask your 2-year-old to pick out what nail polish you should wear and let her pick it out from your 17-year-old daughter's stash. So anyways, it's a little loud. Sorry about that. Okay, so now for the sentiment, I've cut a thin strip of, I think this is Berrylicious cardstock from My Favorite Things, stamping that with Versamark ink and adding some Hero Arts white embossing powder. This blue sentiment strip will go across the top of the note card. Also along the top of the card is a green strip that has those little stitch marks in it. You see those little diagonal lines? I actually created that with this new die set from My Favorite Things. This die set has a bunch of rectangles where it has those stitch lines, those diagonal stitch lines on both sides of the cut line. However, the largest frame in the set just has the stitch lines on the inside, and I'm actually going to use that against the edge of this green cardstock strip so that I can just cut a little thin border with those stitch lines in it. So I'm just going to run this through my die cut machine, and then I'll cut the ends off, and I'll end up with a strip with those little stitch lines in it. I just thought that was some fun texture and interest to add on this strip. So now I'm just going to put some adhesive on the back of this and glue this to the top of my note card. Now I actually cut that green strip a little bit shorter, so I'm going to go ahead and cut my note card a little bit shorter. So the note card ends up being about 5 inches wide. So this is a smaller card, but I still want it to be able to fit in the envelope even when we put this dog on the top. So that's why I made it a little bit smaller. So now I have my pieces all colored and ready that we cut out earlier. And I need to just go ahead and assemble the card. And I wanted to show you how to make it so that the dog's on the front and the inside. First, I'm putting adhesive on the back of the front of his face, and I'm going to glue that kind of hanging at the top of the card. Then remember we also have that little heart that we created. I'm going to put some adhesive on the back of that and tuck it under his paw so it looks like he's holding it. Now that the front is ready, I can go ahead and cut off the extra blue that's hanging off both sides. The reason I made that blue strip very long was so that I could adjust where the sentiment was positioned on the front of the card and make sure that I had room for the dog to be there too. Now I'm putting adhesive on the other dog piece, and I'm going to line it up with the front so it looks like he's kind of hanging there. So you could have this hanging on a wall or looking over a sign or hanging on a window on a card, all kinds of things you can do with that cute little dog. I just think that's so much fun and playful. Now I also like to do other things inside a card just to kind of pull it all together. So there were some dog prints in the stamp set. I'm just going to stamp those with Versamark ink on the inside and add some clear embossing powder so it matches the front of the card. There were a few finishing touches that I wanted to do with the dog. I have this irresistible product that has a super fine tip to it, and it puts down dimensional color. This is the black. I'm going to put that on the dog's nose. And then this is the clear shimmer, and I'm going to put that on the heart and also on his eyes. So this just gives it a little bit of shine, a tiny bit of dimension, and the shimmer one has that little bit of sparkle that will catch your eye. This product is a lot more liquidy, I guess you would call it, than Glossy Accent, so it doesn't give you as much dimension, but it does have this nice nozzle that doesn't get clogged. So that's it for our first card. Now I wanted to show you the cat card that I created, but I'm not going to go through all the steps just to save some time. I'll tell you that I did color the cat exactly the same way that I did the dog. The only difference I did is I took my Copic Colorless Blender, which is kind of like a bleach pen, it kind of erases color, and scribbled it over his belly to lighten him up. And I also used the vintage photo around the edges as I did on the dog. So it was that quick shading that I did with the Copic Markers in Distress Ink. Now the sentiment I used is from this new My Favorite Things Today Happy stamp set, and I stamped that with black ink. Now for the cat, I want to make it look like he's hanging on some string, like he got all wrapped up in a ball of yarn. So I need to cut his paws apart from his body. So I'm just going to put a little cut around the edges of his paws so that he can hang on the string. Now I've got some, this is just like not embroidery, but crochet thread maybe. You can buy a big roll of it, very inexpensive, at a craft store. And I'm just going to tuck that string under his arms. First, I'm going to have this kind of wrap around this whole panel just to make it look like he's kind of tangled up in it. So I'm just randomly wrapping this around, being careful not to overlap our sentiment. And then once I have it all wrapped around, I'm going to take some micropore tape. You could use any tape here, Scotch tape, washi tape, whatever you want. I'm going to tape the ends on the back side so that we can make sure they don't shift, because I want to keep them there so that the cat doesn't fall or that our sentiment doesn't get covered. So I'll just put that tape around all the sides. Now you could also use baker's twine if you wanted for this, but I just thought the solid color was a better option. Okay, now I kept the one end free here because I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that yet. I'll end up kind of making it kind of curly-Q around the front, but I'm just going to leave it there for now. Okay, so now we can take our cat and have him hang on the string up here. Once I have the cat positioned where I want it, I can go ahead and take a piece of foam adhesive and tuck him behind the cat so that he stays put. You could leave him so he kind of hangs there if you want to, and you could move around, but I was afraid that he would fall off the string when I mailed him, so I put a little bit of adhesive behind him. Now for the end of the string, I wanted to kind of do a little curly-Q. So I'm squeezing some Ranger Matte Multi-Medium onto my craft sheet, putting it on my fingers, and I'm going to rub this on the end of the string. This makes it kind of sticky, and then you can form it into whatever shape you want. And then when it dries, it'll stay there. So I'm just going to do like a curly-Q loop at the end, and then I'll fold it over and stick it onto the front of the card so it stays there. Now once I did this, I decided I didn't want the end of the string up there, and so I actually cut it off and put it on the bottom of the little panel here, which you'll see in the pictures. But using that multi-medium actually is really great because it kind of forces the string to do whatever you want. So it starts to listen to you, and it kind of keeps that shape. Now the note card is a top folding 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch note card that I created from some My Favorite Things Berrylicious cardstock, and I stamped the little ball of yarn repeatedly with blue ink over the background. And there you can see the little loop that I moved to the bottom of the card. So there you have a way that you can take some Copic marker colored images that are very basic and then add shading with Distress Ink. I hope that you try these techniques. I really think they're fun and a great way to get more out of the products that you have. If you're interested in the products that I use, I link them below in my YouTube description as always, or you can go over to my blog at jennifermcguireinc.com where I'll have a lot more information and a giveaway. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll stop back by soon.